Hi, everybody.
Hi, good afternoon. Happy Wednesday. Wednesday.
Good. You got it, Frank.
Yeah, I struggled today. I was all day today. I was going, what day is today? I don't know. I think it's this beautiful rainy day that we have that's reminding me so much that this is bowling weather, and sadly enough, we can't take advantage of it for bowling.
Unfortunately, yes. So we will hope that it's short-lived and that the sun comes out momentarily.
Yeah, and we did.
Then we'll feel a little better about it.
We needed the rain, so
we definitely do.
We've had a lot of rain, and then we had nothing for a little while. So I was kind of enjoying that.
Yeah, we haven't had rain for a while.
It's been very humid.
Yeah,
and gross.
Yeah.
So today is a little.
My hair is the judge of that.
Even after getting it did.
It doesn't matter because it's still what it is. So it's still humidity. You know.
I don't have that.
Has its way with it. No, you don't.
I would like. I am getting a cut tomorrow that I need. Although I almost got one. I almost stopped and got one today. So this morning, the Chamber of Commerce had another day of delivering masks.
That's right. Did you do that?
Local businesses in the community. So I volunteered a couple of hours to go drop off.
That's very nice.
They were asking for, if you needed masks, you could apply.
Right.
And then now they're at a point where I think they have so much that they want to reach out to all of the businesses in the community as much as they can.
Instead of just chamber members.
Yeah. So
okay.
I spent a couple of hours. Everybody got a block area to go and deliver, and I delivered on Richmond Terrace between Port Richmond Avenue and South Avenue.
Oh, and, that's a big block.
It is. And I looked at I was like, oh, how many businesses? And I'm
there's
thinking
a decent amount of businesses
that are there. There's a total of. I think 35.
Yeah.
In that space. So I didn't have enough. So I have to go. So either I have to go back, or somebody else got to go back.
So what did you say? Richmond Terrace.
So between Richmond Terrace,
Richmond Avenue to South Avenue.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a decent amount of.
However, a lot of delis.
A lot of little bodegas.
Bodegas, yes,
as we call them in the hood, and I could say that because I live in the hood.
And I would say all different types of business owners, just from all spectrums.
Yeah.
It was a great experience. And so for those that are involved in the Chamber or Rotary, they were seeking volunteers to go out and deliver. And it was just nice to be able to drop off a package and say, these are some free masks for you and your staff from the Chamber of Commerce. Right. So it's nice to see. And then, of course, it's an outreach opportunity for the Chamber. Some of them looked at me like I had 10 heads.
Right.
Okay, thank you. Bye. Peace.
Right.
And they were all very thankful.
Yeah,
a lot of body shops and so forth. So anyway,
it's a kind of an industrial.
One of my last stops happened to be a barber shop down closer to South Avenue.
Right.
So I walk in, and there's this Polish takeout restaurant, pierogies, I think it's called.
Right.
There's a barber shop and a deli, all kind of nearby. So I walked into the barber shop, and tall black man is standing in front of me, and I look at him, smile under my mask, and I recognize him, but don't recognize him at the same time. And going, oh, wait a second. But didn't recognize him outside of his suit. It was our Assemblyman Charles Fall. So I was like, oh.
It's so weird seeing people with their masks on.
No, he didn't have his mask on. He was getting ready to sit in the chair and get his hair buzzed. But he had a T-shirt and basketball shorts on.
Oh, so yeah, he wasn't in his normal,
I was caught off guard. It was so funny.
Dressed.
And he recognized me, and he said, well, hey, Frank, how are you? And I just looked at him and was like, Charles. But he's so tall, how could you not recognize him? And that's what gave it away. But I've never seen him outside of a suit.
Right.
Maybe a tie, sometimes no tie and pants.
Right.
And with a bodyguard.
Oh.
He always has I forget the gentleman's name, and he's hysterical. The last couple times we've met him. Great guy. He is one of our elected officials that always reach out.
Yeah, he's
ask what's going on.
Very, very active in the community. Absolutely.
And so it was a great opportunity he was able to say thank you. Right. I was able to reciprocate, had a nice little conversation.
Right.
And I probably should have stayed to get my hair buzzed while I was sitting there. So I had sent him a text later on. I said, too bad I didn't join you to get my hair done because I'm
You're due.
I'm due. So tomorrow.
You do.
Anyway.
Hey, we were going to do that, but, trying to coordinate Ray's doctor's appointments unfortunately, we couldn't be a part of that distribution, but next time we're going to jump on.
I showed up a little bit before 10, and there were about 6 other folks, whether it be board members of the chamber, members, some Rotarians, showed up to help. And it looked, for me, that it looked like the list, today's knockout list looked like it was going to get accomplished. So it was nice to see that.
Good. That's good.
And to deliver them. But like I said, it's a great opportunity. If you are looking for masks for your business, reach out to the SIEDC, the Chamber of Commerce.
And they are for your employees.
Yes, they're meant to be used for your employees. They're not really meant to
give out to your customers because they should be coming in with their own.
Yeah. And I mean, everybody's got the cool part about what we're seeing now. Everybody's got their own little personality happening with their masks. I have 3 of them in my car now.
I did from the beginning.
I have my bowling one.
Yeah.
I now have the one that you made me, and then I have a rotary one. So I switch them out, I clean them and switch them out. So it's going to be interesting to see how people
moving forward since masks are.
I was looking at some Mets masks yesterday in the Mets shop, and I looked at the price. I was like, oh,
yeah, it's a little more. I'll get some fabric, but I'll make you a mask.
They were nice ones though.
Yeah,
and I got a couple samples this week just looking around.
Right,
and some of them are awful.
Yeah.
Just okay, never mind. And then you look at the price and go, okay, for $3, that's why.
Right.
And then you see the more expensive ones and you go, ooh.
It's a little bit more than you want.
Yeah, and the ones that are cut, you want ones that are kind of cut like this.
Yes.
But I feel like those, when I put my glasses on, are where I have the most fog.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you need the ones that, like the medical masks that have the metal in that are going to keep kind of adhere to your face a little bit.
Anyway. It's disgusting out. I love this weather. We were talking about this last week.
Yeah.
But. It is gross. I had just gotten away from getting out of the car and slamming the rain. Just like
I got in just before it was just drizzling when I got here. So
Joe, if you have to ask us anything, you can shoot us a private message yourself. Shoot us an email or a private message, and I'll be happy to get back to you. But how about you reach out with your questions and we'll certainly answer them.
Yeah.
Not in here. This is unless they're related to the show. We'll certainly answer them in public forum. Today, we have an awesome guest today with us today.
We do.
And but before we bring our guest in, I wanted to touch a little bit on the governor and the mayor both spoke today. It doesn't really matter what the mayor says until the governor speaks. But the governor did back him up today.
They should let Cuomo speak first.
Yeah.
And then
but egos don't allow that.
Right.
So Cuomo said basically put a halt on phase 3 indoor dining indefinitely. There's no date in mind of when potentially could reopen for indoor dining.
I think they're still searching for answers to the real story behind the spread, because now it's on to the air conditioning units and whether they feel like being inside and in bigger places that the air conditioning units are spreading this. So
the one pair that they decide to walk up is the only pair in the house that has maybe a little bit of oil on it, which now it's probably a little sludge because you did that a couple weeks ago.
Well, they like to live dangerously.
They are. I mean, it should just be sticky now. Anyway, yeah. So and they're also they're at a point where they don't want to open and then have to close, which is what's happening in other states. And in North Carolina today, a judge is listening to some lawsuits specifically relative to telling businesses they can open and couldn't open. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. And I said this yesterday, the last couple of days, might open the door for lawsuits if the governments aren't if they're going to keep pushing back without proper notice. So this one could potentially start some sort of rift because the restaurants all started making investments in opening. New Jersey specifically, where their casinos are ready to open, but now we're told this week no indoor dining. Well, nobody's going to go to the casino if they can't have a drink on the casino floor and they can't enjoy the whole experience as a whole.
There were people, they interviewed them. They were still going to go.
Locals will.
Right.
Locals will if they're local, they like to gamble, they go once a week, whatever. They probably will. But those that are traveling to enjoy themselves are not going. Oh no. No, we wanted to go for the whole experience.
You want the experience. I understand.
Even with a mask, got over it. Anyway.
Right.
Hey, so baseball season's supposed to start soon. We're excited. And today's guest, this is episode 94 of Live from Rabs.
Can you imagine that?
The last time this guest was with us was over 50 days ago. He was on the special 50th episode, and we brought him back because we wanted to talk about baseball. He loves bowling. We can't wait to have him come and bowl on the lanes. I think he's itching to get on the lanes too, as he's told Nazareth a couple times.
Oh yeah.
What's going on?
Hi, Nelson.
We take one step forward and two steps backwards, it seems, right?
Yep.
Without doubt.
Yeah, 2020. Right?
Yeah. Well, hey, what's new? What's happening around you right now? What have you been up to?
Podcast from the New York Post. The New York Mets podcast will be starting up on July 6th.
Good.
Yeah, so we're excited to continue doing that. Myself and Jake Brown. We're putting together a list of guests to try and have on right away. Of course, been doing some coaching with kids. The kids are getting outdoors a little bit more, and they're getting ready for their seasons. That's been a lot of fun to see the kids who had prepared to go out in April, and then bam, everything hit. And they're getting out there and they're throwing their bullpens and excited to actually face hitters now and get some games started. So that's it's getting to be a little bit more, I guess, enjoyable out here in New Jersey. But of course, just even listening to Cuomo and things that are going on in New York and Atlantic City trying to open up, and you can only do certain things, and indoor dining, which, I mean, I lived in Arizona, and I've been watching how Arizona has treated this from the beginning. And you saw, after 2 weeks, they were pissed off about wearing masks. Oh, you can't make me wear a mask. I don't need to. Look, we don't even have that many, cases and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden you have to realize that it's more rural out in Arizona. It's spread out. Now all of a sudden you go to gathering places like bars and restaurants, and lo and behold, look what happens. So live and learn. And I think we've done a tremendous job here in New York of, trying to get that curve to flatten as much as possible. When you look at, the other day it was, single digit amount of deaths, which any death is a huge deal, but to go from 800 a day to single digits is a tremendous job. And for everyone to kind of buy in and say, you know what, it's not even about me wearing a mask. It's about me wearing a mask so I don't infect 30 other people if God forbid I have it. That's just, I think you have to have some common sense with that. But other than that, I'm having a lot of fun I played golf one time so far this year and got outdoors, and I think the more and more that we can get to some kind of semblance of summer, I think even if it's with social distancing, I'd rather have that than the winter time and being locked indoors and not being able to do much.
Right.
Yeah. Looks like you've now embraced the quarantine period.
Well, my poor daughter, right? She's 16, so these are her quarantine years. I never thought that, in a million years there would be something like that, but she's embraced being indoors and, doing school online and everything else. And remember how many times that you thought, man, I wonder if I could work from home. And they're, at work, they're like, no, it's impossible. Nobody can do that. And now it's like, everybody can. So I think there's a lot of things that will change, a lot of perspectives that will change. Even businesses of renting that high cost real estate over in New York City. And they're like, wait a minute, we're renting this office space in this building and we're paying all this money. We can all work from home. Oh, this is great. Let's do it. And then, only rent up space for when you're bringing in a big client or something. So I think it's gonna change a lot of things. And I'm hoping something good comes out of this. I think everybody's reevaluating the important things in life and family and friends, and how, we had this technology before this all happened and we didn't use it to the advantage that we are now with the Zoom calls and the ability to, reach out to everyone across the world and have them all on one phone call. Those have been a lot of fun.
Yeah. So on that same thread, some of the players have opted out this year. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's, again, everybody has their own list of what they're willing to do. I mean, I've seen players. I've seen players who, your whole life you wanted to be a major league player. You want to be a major league player. You get signed to a contract. I seen a first rounder with the New York Mets my year that I got drafted. First rounder, got signed, first round deal, and quit the next year. Just fell out of love with baseball. Some of these players are older, like a Ryan Zimmerman, who's played for a lot of years. He's, dealt with injury after injury, and maybe there's some other circumstances that go with it. But Ian Desmond is another player who, I mean, you have to love what you do, and you have to weigh, what's
sacrifice.
Right, exactly. You got to weigh if it's worth the sacrifice to you, if it's worth the going in there. You don't know what his home life is. You don't know who he has to take care of, who he's around, and he doesn't want to impact anybody else. So to each his own, and I'm glad that the MLBPA was able to kind of, incorporate that into the deal of, hey, there are going to be players that don't want to play. I think for the most part, Major League ball players are looking at the essential workers and saying, they have to go to work. We want to go to work. I want to play baseball. If they have to go to work and they are doing it and they're sacrificing, then I'm going to go out there because they know that every precaution is being taken tenfold to what they're even doing in their own homes. You know what I'm saying? I know, we're seeing a lot of videos of guys working out together, guys doing things together. And that's, not exactly social distancing and everything else, where they're going to be held to, hey, 6 feet apart in the locker room. Each locker is going to be spread apart. There's going to be a different standard than they've ever been used to before, and they're going to have to make those. Those aren't sacrifices. Don't get me wrong; those are not sacrifices. They're going to have to learn to deal with the new way of playing a team sport in 2020.
Yeah. I actually saw this morning on TV that there's a team that's selling a season ticket where you could have a cutout of yourself in your seat. I mean, you don't get to go to the game. Right. And obviously, it's not the same price as a ticket.
No, I highly doubt it'd be the same price. But you know what? Listen, that's kind of cool, right? Because what do you want as a fan? You want representation, and I think it's also a way they're probably going to use it to raise money.
Yes.
So, and I think that, listen, I have a brick at Citi Field when there was an opportunity to, hey, you have a piece of this stadium when it's built. I jumped on it. I got one for my dad for Father's Day. Nice. I think if a fan has a chance, and they're a season ticket holder anyway, they wanted to be there. If they can, put up cardboard cutouts of them and their family, even their family dog could be a cutout, whatever. And that money goes to charity. I think good on them. I don't think it's Major League Baseball trying to, let's squeeze out the last little bit of this lemon.
No,
here.
I thought it was a great idea. And if a foul ball hits your cutout, they take the ball and they send it to you. I can't remember what team it was.
Beautiful. And this is kind of the thing that we talk about when it was like starting up baseball. Yes, and then the logistics of it were so many layers, right? That little things like that. That's what the people in the front office or in community relations and ticket sales are trying to brainstorm. Like, what are we going to do to make this season worthwhile for the fan? Right. Fans, of course, they want to watch. And so I got to imagine that whatever the package deal is that MLB had before for MLB TV, it's going to be reduced because it's a smaller amount of games. But at the same time, I don't think they should have any blackouts now. Like, it should be, hey, you want to watch a game and open, watch every single game, because that's what you want as the fans. You don't want to lose the fans because now all of a sudden you're going to hold the restrictions, especially in this times where we just went through what we were going through. And I think that's going to be huge. I love the idea of miking players. Because before it was kind of, you were worried about the fans and picking up the fans' audio, because players for a long time, we get into it with fans and we go back and forth with some ribbing and things like that.
Right.
And it was risky to do. And they did it in the All-Star game, and there are people like, well, you don't have to focus as much. I think there are certain times that you can do it. There's certain times, there's certain players you can do it with. And I think the teams may be accepting of that. I just think, of course, the first error that gets made as a guy's talking, they're going to be like, well, we're not using that.
Well, there you go. That was a bad idea.
Right, exactly. And that's always where the players union, yeah, you got to bleep out every single thing. The players union is always going to be on top of that, right? They want to make sure that the integrity of the game. And so while the entertainment side of it is fantastic, it may not be those guys that are on the field. Maybe they mic up 3 guys in the dugout and they'll talk about, what are these 3 guys talking about? And those 3 guys are in 3 different parts. Maybe you have a guy in the bullpen who's watching the game. What's his perspective? A guy that's in the, on the bench. What's his perspective? You have the guy who's, was yesterday's starting pitcher or tomorrow's starting pitcher, and he can talk about what he's watching.
What he's watching for, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe you get some insight. Maybe even the hitting coach saying, what does a hitting coach do? I mean, these guys are the top of the best when it comes to hitting a baseball in the world. What does a hitting coach do during a game? What is he looking at? What is he looking for? What is he trying to help the hitters with? Those are the things that I think, as a former player and as someone who coaches kids, those would be huge. Those would be huge for, other coaches to see. Listen, those players get yelled at too. There's an expectation when you mess up a play. Hey, get your head out your butt and focus. This is what you get paid to do it at that level. Now you can't even discipline a young kid without, you might get either a strongly worded email or maybe be asked to step down as a coach. And I remember discipline. I put my coaches as I was growing up right along as drill sergeants in the Army. Like, would I speak back to a drill sergeant in the Army?
No.
No, sir. I would not do it. So my coaches got that same level of respect, where now you get these kids and they're just so used to not having to be disciplined. And even when they get yelled at home, there's stipulations and how their feelings are involved. There's discipline, and discipline has to be laid out. It's not abuse. That's the line that's drawn. It's not abuse. It's discipline, and you have to respect that, because that's what I would sign my kid up for. My daughter goes to gymnastics, and she comes home, and she's like, he yelled at me today. I'm like, and? Did he yell something good, or did he yell something bad? And because he has expectations of your performance. And if you don't meet those expectations, he's going to be upset, because he's giving of his time and he's away from his family, and he's dedicating himself to making you better. And if you slack off and you're not willing to put in what he's putting in, of course he's going to be upset.
Yeah. You probably deserved it. And it's funny you talk about miking up the players, because in the past it would just be the quick, interview in between, and that's it. So in the professional bowling, they've been, for a couple of seasons now, they've been miking certain players, and specific. They ask them whether or not they want to, and the ones that do, are the best ones, because there's always
a little more vocal.
They're vocal, and they have something funny to say.
Was Pete Weber Jr. ever mic'd up, or was that just him talking loud? Which was that?
I don't think Pete's one of them that gets mic'd up. I don't think.
He was just loud just to be loud, right?
Yeah. No matter what you put him in.
That's what I said. I said, I don't know. It sounded like he was mic'd up, because you could hear every word coming out of his mouth.
Yeah. I don't think so. There's a lot of booms on the set, so you try to pick up as much. But I don't think he's not. It's usually the younger guys, or even like the Chris Barnes, the Bill O'Neills, Sean. And this, I think, in the last 2 things we've been watching, they're all mic'd up, and they're by themselves.
The different events.
Yeah, so it's fun to watch. I like that. To me, it gives you insight. And if they don't want to say anything, they don't say anything.
Right. That's insight too. Yeah. You know that they're at least outwardly, their mind is a little more quiet.
Yep.
There's
a switch.
Yeah.
Right. There's a switch when you even as vocal as you're wanting to be, and you turn it off for a second, because you're having that internal dialogue where you're trying to figure things out, especially in a sport like bowling, where you're just trying to figure out what's the oil on these lanes right now. What do I got going on, and how far am I behind? You're doing the math in your head. Even I can see that.
Right.
So that becomes second nature, right? But I think those are the kinds of things that for the weekend warrior, for the ones who thought they could play at that next level, to see the difference is a tremendous opportunity to do it in a different way. Same thing with basketball. I think when basketball comes back, you have these players that are willing to be mic'd up, and they're willing to engage in a way. And I think coaching, and hearing some of the inside of coaching, where it's not those detailed X's and O's of, what exactly he's doing, but there's some verbiage there of, which players do they push, which players do they have to stroke, those kinds of things are very important for coaches to learn, and for the average fan to see that interaction.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
Hey, before we talk, I want to back up a little bit. Just the minor leagues made a big announcement this week. And so when you talk about building the next professional players, there's no minor league season. And mainly because you talked a little bit, and I bring it up because you talked a little bit about the fundraising and the money. For them, their money is in ticket sales and having butts in the seats. Right. So just your thought on that, because I think that does make a difference looking forward for the next couple of seasons.
It does. And again, logistically, you could only be occupied with so many players, right? And that's why that 60-man pool was something that they thought, you have the normal was 25-man roster. They're going to start out with a 30-man roster. After 2 weeks, go to 28. After 2 weeks after that, go to 26. And so they're going to have 26-man roster with the universal DH this year. So that's a change in itself right there with the universal DH. For the minor league players, it's frustrating because they haven't had a paycheck since August of last year. And they weren't making. You don't make
a lot of money.
You don't make a lot is an understatement. You don't make enough money to live off of for 12 months. When you're making that minor league money, it's enough to live off of for the 5 months of the season, not even the 6 months, because the major league season goes 6. When you go to spring training, you're not being paid during spring training. So again, August was their last check unless their teams made it into September, and they don't get paid in the playoffs. They don't get a share of the playoff money like Major League Baseball does. Right. So when they make the playoffs, yeah, great. You're playing for something. You're playing for a ring, and you're playing to hopefully, if you were kind of on the bubble, and maybe one of the guys in the front office said, hey, they just won a championship. Let's reward him and bring him up. Even if he doesn't pitch or play for us, let's reward him and bring him up. I had that in 2012 with the Red Sox and with the Paul Sox. We won a championship. And they came to me and they said, listen, we want to call you up, but we're going to fire the manager at the end of the year. It was Bobby Valentine. We're going to fire the manager at the end of the year. And so we're just bringing up the 40-man guys to evaluate them for next year because we're going to have a brand new manager, brand new, people coming in. So to me, the minor league season, it's so, and there's nowhere for these guys to go even. Like there's not, the Atlantic League isn't opening up. And it was already packed with players. Now all of a sudden you have all these minor league players who are looking to play. Staying in shape, staying on top of your game. Winter ball was another thing where winter ball, usually by August, you already knew if you were playing winter ball or not. You got your invitation, a team looked to sign you. Those places are already filled to capacity. And it's scary for a minor league player because now you don't even know, what you're going into next year because they're on 1-year deals. If they're not under that, if a lot of them, if they're not under that first contract where, hey, they already know they're coming back, you can be released at any time. You don't have a guaranteed salary. You don't have a guaranteed contract. You can get released at any time. And for a lot of them, you have a bad season. That was it. That was your pro career. You played one season. For most of these kids now, you just had the draft, and the draft was 5 rounds this year. Right. 5 rounds. Where Mike Piazza was a 63rd rounder. So that tells you that tells you that there's a level of talent that goes well beyond those 5 rounds that didn't get an opportunity yet this year. And for some of them, they were juniors in college. Now they go to be seniors in college. And if they have a college season next year, now as a senior, all the team has to pay them is $1,000 to sign them. They have no leverage. There's no bargaining in that because now that they go and if they don't sign, then they become a free agent and every team's going to be like, well, take it or leave it. So right. The whole thing is so there's so many, again, there's so many levels that go below just that because it's not like that 60-man roster and the taxi squad and everybody else. So you have guys on your 40-man roster who play anywhere from A ball to AAA ball. And then you feel that they can help out your major league team. Having said that, there are guys that you don't really want to rush up to the major leagues, but you have to keep them on that 60-man roster. You keep them on the 40, but they're not going to be playing in that same kind of environment of I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know if they're going to kind of bus back and forth to the closest team that is near them to play against and stay in shape and stay ready. And it's a lost year all in all, except for in the major leagues. Listen, you win a championship, you win a championship. I don't give a dang. If they put an asterisk next to it, that's ridiculous. I think at the same time, it gives a lot of hope to every team, no matter where they were in their, reshuffling and their rebuilding, reloading, whatever the team thought that they needed to do. This is an opportunity for every team to be in it. A 10-game winning streak is almost, a fifth of the season.
Right?
That's huge. That's huge right now. So I think when you're looking at it now, it's going to be it's almost like a March Madness feel to it, where anybody shot and
jammed into a short amount of time.
The one team that I would say that stands out to me as for me is the Tampa Bay Rays. They every year win 93, 95 games with the minimum of payrolls in that American League East. Yeah. And all the pressure's on the Yankees, right? Oh, you guys are going to have to play the best 60 games you can. Yeah. They've finished, pretty competitively right there with 93, 95 wins. They might do something crazy because they've been doing that with the opener and using their bullpen, using that bullpen so much. With this 60-man roster, you may see arms that you've never seen before. You have no scouting report on. They're going to keep using and rotating all these guys in and out. We've seen them do it and have success with it, and they're not afraid to try that, right? Because they're that small market team that is trying to do things that nobody else will be attempting to do in the game. Because if the Yankees tried to do that, they would think, oh, my God, these guys are crazy. What are they trying to do? Reinvent the wheel? I think Tampa Bay is a team that I'm very worried about for the American League, because I think they just – are willing to try anything, and they've had success with it thus far.
What about the National League? What do you think about the National League?
I know it still it goes through. Of course, it goes through the Dodgers, and they have a juggernaut pretty much built over there. But starting pitching still dictates, right? Kershaw seems to always get hurt. Can he stay healthy? It's the health of your starting rotation that it really comes down to, right? The Mets are down one prime starter, but at the same time, they made some good deals where you have a Porcello and a Michael Wacha who can jump in there and not just pitch adequately, but they can fill his shoes and have 12 wins in a normal season. So I think they're going to be able to do a good job. For me, I think the Mets are a team that, because of the universal DH, and you have an ability to use Cano and Cespedes in that capacity a little bit more, and use all the younger guys and mix and match lineups, they're going to be. I think they're going to be very, very competitive. We know starting pitching wise, led by Jacob DeGrom. I'm not. If I could have Jacob DeGrom pitch every third game, I say they have a shot.
I hear you.
But I think there's a lot of upside to what the Mets can do with that. That downtime gave Cespedes a chance to be as healthy as possible. That universal DH spot just screams his name, DH.
Absolutely.
And I think they're going to be right there at the top. If you would have told me last year, after 50 games, that the Nationals were going to win it all, I said you were crazy.
Yeah.
What was they, 19-31?
Yeah.
19-31 after 50 games, and you're sitting there and you're going, well, it's a good season for them. Let's see if they start trading away pieces. No, they got hot at the right time and just had an unbelievable second half. So I think that's what's going to make baseball so exciting. And it could be one of the most exciting summers ever, because every team is going to have an opportunity right to the very end. And extended playoffs, more playoff teams in it. It's going to have that hockey feel with more teams being in there. And, that's where it gets to that. You never know. You never know what the lower seed can take out. Because in baseball, your starting pitcher can beat any team at any time, and you score a couple runs, and all of a sudden you have a chance to win a World Series. And I think the Nationals season last year really spoke to that.
Yeah. So yesterday, a Yankee fan mentioned that they felt that DeGrom might struggle this year because of the DH. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that are no.
Well, take it from where it comes from, right?
This is what it is, right? That makes sense, and it made sense through the whole time where people would argue about the American League versus the National League. Well, the National League has a Band-Aid in there where they can go and get the pitcher, they can get the pitcher out easily, and the strategy was, do you walk the number 8 hitter to pitch to the pitcher in a key situation? So that strategy is gone. Jacob DeGrom has pitched against the DH before. In interleague play, and he's handled the DH. Jacob DeGrom doesn't really. He's actually 2 years ago, I think pitchers batted over 400 against him. They had the most success against him because it was like his moment of like letting back and being like, all right, I don't have to be so good. And he would try to just get ahead, and they batted over 400 against him. And I remember sitting there going, this guy's way too good to be giving up these hits to pitchers. But that's something that happens. Now, of course, he's 2-time Cy Young Award winner, and he's got his thing dialed up. I don't think it matters if you put a team of DHs against him. He's just in a class by himself, so I'm not really worried about the DH taking away from that. I think he is the kind of pitcher that with one pitch he can neutralize a DH. DH doesn't mean an automatic home run, but a DH means it's one extra guy to have to throw a couple more pitches to and use the different sequences, and this is what the man does. I think it just helps him focus more throughout the whole ball game.
Yeah. So, we didn't talk, I don't think we talked about DeGrom last time you were on.
No.
And so talking about his evolution from where he was 2 or 3 years ago to where he is now.
Notice how the conversation has to.
Yeah. She just happened to pick this one out, huh?
Right. And I happen to have a little bit of it.
Yeah, I don't blame you. That's the thing. I don't blame you. From the beginning, when I got to SNY in 2015, Jacob DeGrom had just won Rookie of the Year. And I was trying to find out as much as I could about him. I talked to some people in the front office, and they said, he had a really nice season. He finished really strong, and we're proud of him. I said, what does he have to work on? Year 2, you usually have to either add a pitch or add an ability to do something differently. Right. And they were like, he's pretty much, average across the board. He pitches really well. He's got a good feel for pitching, and, he can continue to develop. But when they said average across the board, at that time, he was topping out at 94 miles an hour. Uh-huh. And then after he had the surgery to move the nerve over, and he wasn't bothered by, some kind of ringing pain on certain pitches. You saw a guy who had this laser-like focus and the intensity. Like, we kept talking about these guys as the 5 aces. And the one thing that I always stressed was it's not a show for Jacob DeGrom. Like, it's not he didn't have a superhero nickname, right? He was one of the only guys in that. He didn't have an alter ego. He didn't have an alter ego, and he never wanted that. You know why? Because he was one of the guys that was accountability was more than anything.
Right.
I made the pitch. I messed up. I'm going to be better next time. He was always that guy to me, and that was what spoke out really differently to me was his attitude. It wasn't the stuff. It was the attitude. And then once he kind of figured out, okay, I need to work on this. I need to work on that. And it was like fine tuning a car, and you're watching this guy, and it became poetry in motion. It was a battle with his mechanics because he was long and lanky, and whoever the coach was or how the staff worked together to be like, hey, you do this and this and this well. Why are you going to continue to try to fix these other things that you do so poorly rather than focus on what you do well? And he did that. And most pitchers, we spend our whole careers trying to do something we're not good at, right? Because we learned early on, if I'm good at throwing a fastball and locating it into this location, well, I need to work on the ones that I'm not good at. No. Stay with what you're very good at, and what he was very good at was pitching to the top of the strike zone. He has one of the best high fastballs in the game, and it was never really a velocity thing, although now he's sitting at like 98 with it, which is incredible. Right. But for me, it was his ability to change eye levels with that and then pitch off of that. So if he got the high fastball at 98 and it had that spin and it stayed up in the zone because of his mechanics and the way he threw the ball, then he would come out right after that and it released the same, and it looked like it was the same. It was the same effort, same mechanics. Ball come out, and it was a changeup, and it would just turn over at the end, and it was 90. And then it goes right off of that, and it goes a slider, and it goes the other direction. And so now ball's coming in, one stays up, one goes this way, one goes that way. He became so tough because the biggest weapon in baseball is unpredictability.
Yep.
If you don't pitch to a set game plan, and that's what happens, is that some of these guys become so robotic, 2 strikes, 80% of the time he's going to his slider. Well, the hitters know that now. They're doing their homework. And it's not them, they're doing their homework. They have research teams that are doing the homework for them.
Absolutely.
There's on the board, it says 80% of the time, 2 strikes, he goes to his slider. Where's the slider located? Down and away. Well, that tells me I can scoot up on the plate, and now I'm not missing that ball that just gets off the plate. I'm still able to get the barrel to it. With Jacob DeGrom, you can't do that. You can't get comfortable. And I think what speaks volumes is when a guy like Altuve, this is why I laugh about the whole Astros thing. He knew he was getting 3 changeups in spring training. Yep. And he swung and missed right through all 3 of them. And he said, I don't care if I know it's coming. I can't hit that. I can't, because if you're thinking, as a hitter, if you're thinking something else is coming and you get that, you still have to decipher speed, spin, strike or ball, swing or not, how hard to swing, when to swing. There's so much that happens in a 0.4 of a second. 0.4 of a second, you have to decide all these things. So when you sit back and you say, man, baseball's a boring sport, if you look at the inside of 0.4 of a second and what has to happen for you to just make contact, not even good contact, just make contact, you would tip your cap more often to hitters and say, when they are the good ones, how good they really are.
Yeah, agreed. And I going back to DeGrom, that I felt like his kind of evolution with his confidence and being more clear on how important it was to focus, that kind of enabled him to be better physically.
99.9% of pitchers would use the lack of run production during their starts as an excuse. 99.9. And all they did was make this guy tougher. When he lost games 1-0, he would say, I gave up too many runs.
Yeah.
And that's an ace. That's when I did a breakdown about aces, and I tried to explain to people what an ace was. An ace was not a guy who threw hard and had a wipeout slider and pitched 6 starts well, and then the next 6 starts got bombed, and then the next 6 starts you didn't know what you were going to get. For me, an ace, it was about their mound presence. And when I say mound presence, you see Scherzer when he throws a ball and he gets pissed off. You see Kershaw when he throws a ball or he throws a pitch that he thinks is a strike and the umpire doesn't call it a strike. That intensity is everything. That intensity, there's a mound presence that guys fear getting in the box. They know they're in for a rough day.
Yeah.
I didn't see that from the other guys. I didn't see that from them. I saw them going out there, and when I came up, we had a young group in the Diamondbacks. They all threw very hard, and we were in AAA together. And after every start, they'd come over to look at the radar gun readings, and they were like, "Oh, I threw harder. I threw harder today than you did yesterday. I threw the hardest this week." And I'm sitting there going, "You guys are averaging 5 runs a game. Like, I don't care how hard you throw." So, to me, there was that element of. It was more not going through the motions, but not understanding run prevention was everything.
Yeah.
Because wins and losses, they say they're not important. I still love, and every starter loves to win. You pitch well enough to deserve a win. You pitch deep enough into a game to deserve a win. You want to win. I think that still holds true. But you can hold your head up high. I got a no decision, but I went 7 innings. I went 100+ pitches, and I held the other team in check so that my team had a chance to win a ball game. That's what it's all about. That's what pitching is all about. You can't control if your team scores runs. You say, "Oh, the National League, the pitcher hitting." No, stop that. We don't do enough hitting to be a huge factor. We'll have one day a year where it's like, "Oh my God, look at this! DeGrom hit the 2 doubles." Great, but on average, pitchers are batting under $130 for their careers. It's not that it's not that sexy enough for them to say, oh, let's keep hitting pitchers hitting and running the bases and sliding and getting hurt, rather than saying, you know what, maybe for the game, it's better to have that extra hitter in there, and it's better for the pitchers to focus on pitching 100%. And I think that's going to be a different animal this year, honestly, for a lot of these National League guys who they'll see the benefits of it, where all I got to do is focus on getting 3 outs at a time.
So is there turning back? So now for this shortened season, you're going to make these. There's no turning back, right? So moving forward, it's going to be the norm, right? I would imagine.
I've played all over the world. I played winter ball all over the world. Even in the WBC, we had the WBC. First thing was universal DH, and they were trying it out there to see what fans thought of it. Do you think I cared that I didn't get an at bat? Not at all. Not at all, because my job is as a pitcher. I get it. I was a National League pitcher. I could handle the bat. I felt like that was my advantage anytime I played against another National League team, that I could handle the bat. I could put the ball in play. I could bunt. I wouldn't strike out. I maybe make the pitcher throw 8 to 10 more pitches than he would normally throw. I think in today's game, with them being so pitch count conscious, that's also another factor, right? Why am I wasting pitches on a pitcher? And now they have another hitter in there. Those pitches are going to be made to count, right? Because if it was against a pitcher, you almost said, oh, those don't count. And it was just against the pitcher. The pitcher took 3 strikes. Well, if you face him 3 times, that's 9 pitches. 9 pitches is a tenth of your outing because you're throwing 90 pitches.
Yeah. Right.
So I think, to me, the universal DH is now here. And this commissioner, think about what he's done in the last 6 years. If you would have told me that you couldn't slide and take out somebody at second base, I would have said you're crazy. That's part of the game. It's always been a part of the game. It's one of the beautiful parts of the game, is that double play and the chance you have to break it up, knock a guy down and get the ball thrown away, score a run, and that guy goes to second. It's an exciting part of the game, exciting element. If you would have told me that got taken away, I would have said you're crazy. 2 years later, we had when the Buster Posey rule. You can't take out a catcher at home now. Yep. What's more exciting than that? That used to be that's where fans are on their feet. There's a collision at that plate. That's a momentum changing play. That is a game changing play. And now what happens? We've got to watch video replay in slow motion to see if the catcher had his shin guard over the plate too soon. Yes. And block the plate, and didn't give a clear lane so the guy could slide through. That element is now changed the game. So this commissioner has done that. That is already said that we're not going to have the one pitcher to one batter kind of thing. You're going to have to face 3 batters. So he's already been able to be progressive to change the game. And some people will say, is it for the good or is it for the bad? It gets changed. I don't think we're going to see it go back all of a sudden. So I think it gets changed. I think what happens is you're realizing that these players are getting paid. The game itself is making a lot more money. These players are getting paid a lot more money. Would you go and drive a Ferrari and try to crash it? No, we wouldn't. So you're paying Ferrari prices. You want that Ferrari to last so that it looks good every race day. I don't want it to be, possibility of crashing it into a wall. Yeah, it's exciting. Everybody's on their feet. Right. That's what the owners are saying. The owners are like, whoa, if this wasn't a human being in a baseball field, if this was an investment, I don't want it to have an opportunity to break down so soon. I'm looking at getting the max value of production over the life of a contract. Right. So why not have it focus on what it's meant to do?
Well, yeah, and you would think that the conversation for the longest time, you mentioned it before, the game is boring, and people perceive that because the game is long. Right. So here now we've made some changes to make the game shorter, and I feel like none of them actually have worked, right? So you look at replay, we've elongated the game. Now we've got a couple of other changes here, so extra innings, runner on second. Are these truly things that they want to do to speed the game up, or what?
Well, the runner on second one, it's inevitable that it's going to speed up the game. I mean, that guy being on second with 1 out, it's either way, there's 2 outs to get out of the inning, or there's a base hit in the game ending, Yeah. So that to me is a obvious way to speed up the game. The other ones, like using a pitcher for 3 outs, there's going to be ways, because if a guy's coming in to face a lefty, he faces the lefty and he's focused on facing that lefty, right? So it's usually an intense battle, sliders in the dirt, fouled off, 6-7 pitches. Now that righty comes up that he really shouldn't be facing. Now that righty's up and he's going to be pitching to him very carefully. Or are they going to go ahead and abracadabra walk him? Remember, that's speeding up the game as well, right? 4 easy balls. Are they going to walk him? Are they going to walk him as well to now put another guy on base for the next lefty who's coming in up to bat? And then he's going to really pitch to him really carefully and take his time and make sure that meanwhile, that guy would be out of the game. And that guy would. So I think I had a suggestion of making it that if that one guy was facing that one guy, that next guy had to be ready. And he didn't get 8 warm-up pitches. He didn't get 2.5 minutes to run in. That guy literally had to be, hey, ground ball out, boom, he's in the game. He gets 7 warm-up pitches, let's go. But they have commercial breaks. Remember, commercial breaks pay the bills. So they although they say they want to speed it up, they want to speed it up with the commercial breaks in there. And I think some of the split screen stuff is working, but you can't sell full ad prices on a split screen.
Right.
So there's a million different ways that this game is changing, and sports in general are evolving. Because bottom line is this: you could sit at home and watch every single sport in HD and have an incredible experience, but it does not substitute being there. It does not substitute being the camaraderie, the roar of the crowd, the fans, even just the travel to and from the game, that bonding time that you have with your children, with your dad, and you talk about the game, you talk about all these things. For a lot of the kids and parents, that was the only time they talked. Yeah. The travel to and from the game. It's something that I think I don't ever foresee it being, the cardboard cutouts all the time. But at the same time, I think there would be more families sitting around the TV this summer watching the game. And even if it's, hey, let's have a pool party and we're all going to watch the game, that's going to be something as well.
Yeah, and speaking of the cardboard cutouts, that's the A's and Giants.
Okay. I thought it was the A's, but I didn't.
The A's, and that's the thing. The A's are that kind of team. They do things a little bit differently. I mean, they signed the kid who threw 96 miles an hour at their speed pitch. So the A's have done things a little bit differently. You have to do that in those markets. You have to be fan friendly. Was it the A's? I want to say it was either the A's or the Giants, and it might have been their minor league team. They had the clothing optional day. And that got all the way to the day before they shut that idea down. But it sold out very quickly because you figured one of two things was going to happen. You were either going to see a lot of things, so that got shut down. But I think that's one of the things you look at is that you have to, as an entertainment industry, you're looking to do things a little different. You want to be like, people come to us because of the experience, and there's an experience involved. Going to Citi Field is much different than when you went to Shea Stadium. There's more to do. There's the different booths and restaurants and the foods. Sitting in different levels changes your perspective of the game.
Yeah.
I always laugh at people that I always sit in these seats, and I always sit. Move around the ballpark. Check out a ball game from left field in the bleachers. The people themselves are different, right? The energy is different. You sit behind the dugout, and there's a certain aesthetic of sitting behind the dugout. They don't even want you standing up to cheer because, hey, I paid good money for these seats. You're in the left field bleachers. You're up the whole time, and you're let's go Mets. The ball gets hit out there, and it's the ball's in a jungle, a sea of hands going crazy, and it's a different atmosphere. So I always tell people, like, try and go to so many games that you see it from every perspective. Go to a game, and you know what? You might walk around the whole time in one of the games. It might be that kind of day, but you're at the ballpark, and I think the Citi Field is a great place to go and enjoy an afternoon.
Yeah,
it really is. California probably really should be its own country.
Hey, listen, I tell you, when I got out to the West Coast and I got traded to Arizona, I remember getting off the plane and I flew into Fresno, California, and it was trade deadline deal. So that means I got traded the 31st of July. August 2nd or 3rd, I was already going out there. I meet up with the team in Fresno. Sitting there, my team's getting chewed out by the manager, and the manager is about 15 minutes to game time. The trainer looks at me and gives me one of these, like, you got to get going to warm up. And I'm like, oh, my God. So I start getting stretched really quick. He gives me like a 5-minute stretch, 10 minutes to game time. I go warm up, and it's 107 degrees at 7 o'clock at night with a good healthy 1,000% humidity in Fresno, California. And I'm like, okay, it's really hot. As I'm walking out or running out to the bullpen, they say, you can't wear those shoes. I'm wearing blue shoes because I was with the Mets, and now I'm with the Diamondbacks, and it's black shoes. And I'm like, I don't have black spikes. What do you want me to do? They're like, well, you can't wear the blue ones. I go, why? It's like, it's a uniform policy. I'm like, well, I'm going to have to get a fine, I guess. I go, I don't have any of the shoes. I warm up as quick as I can. I'm literally warming up during the whole first inning because we're the visiting team. I'm warming up. I get done. I go straight from the bullpen. I run into the dugout just to I had to change my shoes. And so the bat boy for our team, who was provided by the team, he had a size 9.5. I was a 10.5. I wore his shoes.
Oh my God.
I go out there, first inning, I think I gave up 2 or 3 solo home runs.
Yeah.
Okay, and we're in Fresno, California. The ball flies. We're playing at the Fresno State field, and their field was a left field wall that went straight across. So it was like 310 in the corner, and in the gap it was 320. Like, it was just an easy poke.
Yeah.
I gave up 3 solo shots in that first inning, and I'm like, oh my God. I get into the dugout. I excuse myself, run to the bathroom. I puke my guts out because I was just too much, too fast in that heat. Settle down. I wound up going like 6 innings. I gave up 2 more solo shots. I gave like 5 solo shots on the day. I think I lost 5-4, but it was just unbelievable, like how different everything was. And it just, from there, playing in the PCL, playing in the Pacific Coast League, everybody complains about Coors Field being, mile high. There's 4 fields that you play at in the PCL that are that high. Salt Lake City, Utah is in the mountains. The center field is 420, the gaps are 400, and the ball still flies out. Colorado Springs, it's a launching pad. So you kind of get used to these small fields with this thinner air, and it's just a different way of life out there. So that for a New York kid,
yeah, and wearing smaller
with shoes that are a size too small.
And it was so funny too, because I'm sitting there and we're getting yelled at and I didn't do anything. I wasn't even with the team, and we're just getting yelled at. And he's kind of making eye contact with me when he does it. I'm like, I wasn't even here. Why are you looking at me when you're yelling? And it just, I was like, I can't get up during this speech. He's giving this rah speech, And the trainer comes over and he's like, you got to go. And I'm thinking, yeah, this isn't going to turn out to be too good.
Not a good start. Not a good start. All right, so we have some questions for you, but before we do them, I just have something that I have to ask you. Your opinion.
Oh boy.
Yep.
What happened to Matt Harvey?
Oh boy.
Do we have enough time for that?
Like a short version.
The short version. So here's the short version. We talked about Jacob DeGrom and we praised him because he was always Jacob DeGrom, right? He wasn't anybody else.
The opposite.
Yeah.
Matt Harvey became the Dark Knight, and when the Dark Knight couldn't save the day, he didn't want to be Bruce Wayne. He couldn't live with being Bruce Wayne. He had to be the Dark Knight. And if he couldn't be Bruce Wayne, it just wasn't going to be the same ever for him. I think that was the thing. He couldn't – I thought injuries, of course, played a huge part. Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
But I've been injured before, and when I came back after my shoulder surgery, I went down to the Mexican League to pitch, and I faced Johnny Gomes with bases loaded, my first batter. I threw him my first pitch. He swung and barely tipped the ball. I looked back at the scoreboard to see the radar gun reading. It said 81 miles an hour. That was my fastball. I reach back again, throw another one. He pops it up with bases loaded. We get out of the inning, and I see him the next day, and he goes, "Man, that's a ballsy move. Back-to-back changeups, with bases loaded." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a fastball guy. You can hit a fastball a long way, but I went to my changeup." Meanwhile, that was my best bolt, 81 miles an hour, and it was like, "Oh God, I don't have the ability to throw hard anymore." It came back slowly, but it was a work in progress. For Matt Harvey, doing it at the major league level,
You didn't have that.
he didn't have that. The sad thing is that, yes, surgeries, like I said, those play a part. But he still, that last year that he was with the Mets, was still throwing 97 miles an hour.
Yeah.
If you can't get outs, and here's the thing about baseball and about pitching. Throwing 97 and pitching with 97 are two different things. He was throwing 97, but it was a flat fastball. It got a lot of the plate and saw hard contact. He had to become a different type of pitcher. The crazy part is that when he first came up to the big leagues, it's on record. I think the Verducci piece that he had written, The Dark Knight, when he dubbed him The Dark Knight, Verducci had said, a guy had gotten to first base and told, I think it was Lucas Duda at the time was the first baseman. He said, this guy's best pitch is his changeup. Meanwhile, he's throwing a 100-mile-an-hour fastball and a nasty, unhittable slider. His best pitch was his changeup. And why? Because of that unpredictability.
Right.
Changeup, they couldn't sit on anything else. He lost feel for that changeup, and he had a good curveball. He had a wipeout slider, but he never put it all together. So he did it in spring training. He did it in spring training that last year with the Mets, and I watched him do it. I watched him. His last outing was against the St. Louis Cardinals, against their lineup. He gave up one run, a home run to DeJong, the shortstop, hit a home run off him. But other than that, he was in and out, up and down in the strike zone, used his changeup, used his slider, used everything. And I had congratulated him after the game when I spoke to him about seeing the advantage of being a complete pitcher.
Right.
Not always trying to be pedal to the metal. Here's my best fastball. Here's my best slider. And then once they take both those for ball one and ball two, what do you got now?
Right. What happened?
That's what happened to him. And so with that, confidence is a huge – it's not measurable. It's not measurable. There's no percentage you can put on it. Confidence is huge, right? So when everything's going right, you're on top of the world. Right. As soon as he got booed off the mound, he didn't know how to deal with that. He never got an opportunity to right that ship. And the fans didn't ever give him an opportunity, right? It was like every time he went out there, he came out all of a sudden in the Oliver Perez role. They're down 7 runs. Matt Harvey's in there. Matt Harvey. This was the guy. He was supposed to be the $200 million pitcher and everything else. And if you look at his career, and it became a matter of when he had everything working, he was one of the best pitchers in baseball. But if he didn't have everything working, there was always something there where it was. Remember, they talked about his mechanics were off, and there's an easy fix. Right. That lasted over a year. The easy fix, and it never came. It was just the fact that he could not fathom pitching to contact. Pitching to contact would have helped him get quicker outs, easier outs, rather than trying to strike everybody out. He wanted to have the 10 strikeout game still every time. He wanted to light up the radar gun. He wanted to do so many things on that superhero checklist that, as Bruce Wayne, he could have done under the radar, and nobody would have noticed, and nobody would have bothered, because they had to prepare for Jacob DeGrom and Noah Syndergaard. Right. That was the other thing. He became third string on that rung. And I don't know if his ego could accept that. Because he kept trying harder and harder and harder, rather than being smarter and smarter and smarter.
Yep. Yeah. To me, it's in my fanhood time, he's one of the sadder stories when I think of the potential of how good he could have been. And I really felt like so much of his problems were, like you said, he just couldn't accept being like a regular kind of guy. He always had to live up to what the fans thought, and the fans in New York are tough. This is not an easy place to play. So,
Yeah, look, I compare him to Mike Tyson Mike Tyson at the height of his game, nobody could take him down. Nobody, and then Buster Douglas knocked him out, right?
Right.
And
He
he was never the same.
down.
And he was never the same. The other thing was it spiraled to outside the ring.
Yep.
Same thing with Harvey. He was having problems off the field because I spoke to Dwight Gooden. If you have a chance on our podcast on our podcast with Jake Brown, there's an episode with Dwight Gooden, our last one, episode 6.
I watched it.
Listen, that is as true a statement. And I had talked to Doc before, and I actually reached out to Doc to try and talk to Matt. Because there's no one who knew about being at the height of New York.
Yeah.
And the king of New York, and at a young age with all that pressure and the pitfalls that would come from that.
Yeah.
More so than Doc Gooden. And I said to him, if you had a chance to tell young Doc something now, what would it be? And he said to enjoy it more and to be able to block out the noise. Because for him, if he didn't strike out 10, it was what's wrong with you.
Yeah.
And he's like, I faced the Chicago Cubs 12 times in a season. Yeah. He goes, I threw 2 pitches. He goes, Figgy, I threw 2 pitches. I threw a fastball and a curveball. There's only so many ways to slice that up. He goes, but I would still win the game. I'd still go 8 innings, but I'd only strike out 4. And they're like, you just didn't have it today, did you? Yeah. And he would go home and he would have those voices in his head.
Yeah.
He admitted to me afterwards, we talked, and he goes, I couldn't imagine having social media when I played. Because I would read about how bad I was. I would read about, and that would just sit with me. And I would try and show everybody wrong. I would prove them wrong the next time out there. I'd go out there and overdo it, and it wouldn't be the same. And I would be doing it for them rather than enjoying it and sitting back and going, I'm in control of this. And he goes, I had whole games where, all I cared about was going complete. If I didn't go complete game, what was wrong with me? If I didn't have 10 strikeouts, what was wrong with me? And it wasn't for them. When they asked the question, it made me question, what was wrong with me today? Why didn't I strike out more people? Yeah. And I think that was something that Matt Harvey, once the blues came and he couldn't shake it off and he couldn't find it in a short amount of time, he needed to go to the minor leagues and it wasn't even about having success in the minor leagues. He needed to go to the minor leagues
just to take a break,
clear his mind, to reshuffle the deck and be like, and again, if he had a good game in the minor leagues, there's no difference. I'm sorry. There's no difference. Once you play and you're 60 feet 6 inches, it doesn't change. That mound distance doesn't change once you get old enough, right? The only difference is that hitter will hit more mistakes, and the more times he sees you, he begins to understand you a little bit better if he's a smart hitter. So if you're playing against the same guys and you're for 5 years now, you're a fastball slider guy, and you're not using your other weapons and you're not pitching in a different sequence, then you have to find a way to develop success. If he went down to the minor leagues for 2 starts and he had some punch outs because these guys had never faced him before, it would have been a good thing. But at the same token, what if he didn't have that success and he got smacked around because, hey, these guys can still hit? Yeah. Then it would have almost been even worse for him. So it was a catch-22. I can't say that it would have helped him, but I think the focus of it not being – after this game, if the Mets lose, and they were losing 7-0 anyway when he went in the game, but if the Mets lose, nobody's going to ask about the starting pitcher. They're going to go right to Harvey. It's all about Harvey. It all became about Harvey, and it was Harvey. Every time Harvey went out there, what's wrong with Harvey? Harvey and the Mets. Nobody cared about what the Mets game was. Nobody asked what went on, how many errors. No. Matt Harvey was a story, and it was always that way. And it was sad to see how quickly it turned around for him.
Yeah.
Well, it's listen. You just look at the nature of a player like that gets built up so much, and the pressure alone. I mean,
I think it's to really that people are human. I mean, he's dealing with the way, just like Doc Gooden, who came up kind of like a naive, kind of totally different guy than Matt Harvey, but kind of fell into the same pitfalls because they're human people, and they just took on what happened around them. And you see somebody like DeGrom, who is super talented and is able to kind of step away and kind of put things in perspective. And so it's he's a different person.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true. It's 100% true, because when you're a single guy and you're tabbed as the king of New York and you go out, it's just all eyes are all on you, right? You're being adored, you're being loved. Please find me one article anywhere about DeGrom being out anywhere in New York. You won't find it. You won't find it. Even Syndergaard going out to the Rangers games and going out. That's the perks, right, of being a superstar. That's the perks of being a New York superstar, because you go to the Rangers games, you go to the Islanders games. You know, you're applauded. You go out on the ice. It's great. It's awesome, right? But the moment you don't handle your business on the field, all of a sudden, nobody wants to talk about the game. They want to talk about, do you think the cameo you had last offseason on Game of Thrones affected your pitching performance today?
Right.
It doesn't make sense, but now you have to answer for that. You have to answer for being a young superstar in a big market, and you have to look at it that way now. Now with social media, you can't go anywhere without a camera being on you. So the pressures that go along with it, it seems like a lot of fun, and I just don't know many people that are able to live up to it. Yeah. I look at two guys in New York, and they were very similar to me. And that was Derek Jeter and David Wright. For almost 20 years, you didn't read one bad thing about them.
Yeah.
They weren't in the limelight. Jeter's, escapades of dating came out after he played. But while they were playing, you didn't know anything about what was going on with these guys. You didn't hear about it, because they were very private people, and that's the way they wanted to keep it, because they were more focused on, hey, tomorrow's another game, and I've got to focus on that, and that's why they were both captains, right? Because what was important to them, not just their image, the image of the organization, the image of everything around, because they got the magnitude of what it was like to represent New York. It's not easy to do. Not every player can be held up to that high and to that standard. We've seen superstars come in and they fade very quickly now. Nowadays, they fade very quickly. And that was one of the things that I've talked about for years, is that you're looking at guys skyrocketing to this stardom, and 2 years later, they're gone. 3 years later, they're gone. They're out of the game. There isn't that longevity. So when you see a Clayton Kershaw and you see a Justin Verlander, learn to appreciate that. Appreciate the level of excellence that they are at for such a long period of time, because it's few and far between now. Look at closers, right? Mariano was the best closer in baseball for 20 straight years. Yeah. Okay? And you're not going to see that ever again. Yeah. Whoever gets paid the most amount of money, Kenley Jansen was the best closer in baseball 3 years ago. Would you even consider him in the top 10 still? Yeah. Crazy. You don't do it anymore. So I think the game has changed in that way. To be a fan of the game is really, it's hard to sit there with that one player and you say he's the best, and now they have stats to prove that he's not, because you can argue OPS over anything else. It used to be. Right? It used to be Lucas Duda led the team in home runs. He's the best hitter on the team. You're like, well, with runners in scoring position, and if you look at how many strikes, there's so many ways that you can argue that I think that's the beauty of baseball now, is that even you have fans who are passionate just because they love a player, and then you have fans who love the numbers and don't really care about the personality of the player. Right. And that is a world. Those worlds are colliding now like never before.
Yeah. Speaking of money, it's July 1st, so Bobby Bonilla is certainly getting his paycheck today.
But I told you guys about why it's the greatest deal that they ever had. It's smart. It's smart to defer the money because, again, it's paid over time, whatever. But it gave them the opportunity to get Hampton. Hampton went away. It gave them a compensation pick, who turned out to be David Wright.
Yeah. There it is.
So, again, if that deal wasn't made, Mets maybe don't get a chance to draft David Wright. So you have to look at it that way. I think there's only one other better example than that. It was Mark Teixeira when he left the Yankees and went to California. The California Angels got a compensation pick.
Oh, that's right.
Mike Trout.
Yeah, that didn't stink. That worked out all right for them.
Needless to say, that worked out pretty well for them. So yeah, I think I actually saw a thing on Twitter today. Somebody wrote the Mets' highest paid player this year, Bobby Bonilla.
It was probably a Yankee fan that did it because they liked it.
They're just jealous of the dollars and the interest that he's earning on that money as well.
Yeah, no, and then it'll always go back to the Madoff will be the next thing that comes out of the mouth.
Yeah.
Then we come back with the 27 rings, and then we go back. It's a great time.
No, and usually it's the uneducated ones that throw those back and that go back and forth.
All right, so Nelson, I have a question from our normal co-host that's here on the weekends, Joe Cal, and he's a fellow Brooklyn guy.
Nice.
And he wants to know what your memories are of playing baseball in the parade grounds in Brooklyn, and considering it's a shrine in Brooklyn.
Yes, it is. Oh man, talk about memories. You talk about waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday to get there by 7 o'clock in the morning to have to fix up the field. And by fixing up the field, I meant removing the glass, the broken bottles, the hypodermic needles, taking, we used to take like mattress foam and use it as sponges to soak up the water in the puddles so that we didn't have puddles on the field. So we maintained, you had to maintain your position wherever you played. That's when you went there and you guys raked the dirt, tried to make it as smooth as possible so you didn't get bad hops. And that's all before the doubleheader for the day, right? But I got to play in the parade grounds over the years, and there was just so many memories, games being played in between, soccer games being played in the middle, and just trying to focus on, your game in your area. Balls would get hit from field to field, and the center fielders could meet and run back and forth. I used to love just the competition was so good. The youth service was there. We had youth service. We had Amity. Hold on one second. Renee! Renee!
We got a request.
No. Okay. It was amazing to grow up and be in that environment and to know the players that came before me, the Sean Dunstons and Manny Ramirez, who was just right before me, Frankie Rodriguez, to know the history of guys who played in the parade grounds, and you hear all these stories. And that's one of the things that we still talk about it when we go to dinners and we hang out in Brooklyn. For me, I remember I almost got signed to a contract out of high school by the White Sox, and I had been clocked before 88, 89, whatever. I was throwing, and the mound, of course, was this far underground because it was dug out so far. And I'm wearing high top Nike spikes, and I'm warming up to throw. I throw my first warm up and it's like 83. My second warm up's like 84. Third warm up's like 86. So you get 8 warm ups, and then you have to throw 10 pitches, and they would see if they wanted you to pitch against hitters in a second round. Right. So I started heating it up a little bit, and all of a sudden I got through my 7th warm up, and they were like, "That's it, you're done." I'm like, "Oh my God, what happened?" And all my friends are high-fiving in the back, like, "Oh my God." Yeah. I had apparently hit 91 on the gun, and I had never done it because I had never seen it. It was different. It wasn't like on a scoreboard or anything. There was a scout there, and he saw me at 91. So I didn't even have to throw any more pitches. They said, "We're going to see you at the next round." I faced hitters, and I actually faced one of my catchers, and I just continually threw the ball by him, threw him some breaking balls, threw everything. After we got done, they were like, we're very interested in possibly signing you. Where are you going to go to college? And I told them Brandeis University, and they're like, "Oh, well, that's a 4-year school. I don't know if you want to do that. You have to wait until your 3rd year." And I said, "No, I'm going for my education." I said, "And whatever happens, happens. If I'm good enough, I'll be good enough." I said, "Unless you're willing to make me a substantial offer." They said, "We don't have a lot in the budget right now, and but it's a great opportunity. You'd be with the White Sox, or we could send you to a junior college. We have contacts with a junior college that you could go there, and we could sign you after the 1st year of junior college." And I was like, "Nah, I'm gonna go to Brandeis and get my education, and we'll see what happens in 3 years." And it wound up working out, but I actually did a documentary about the parade grounds and growing up in Brooklyn. We walked through, and it's so different now. They did a tremendous job renovating it. The Bonnies were still over there at the time. Getting to watch the kids play, and just thinking to myself that yeah, I'm one of the guys that made it to the major leagues, and that was 30. I was here 30 years ago playing on those fields. Like there hasn't been anybody since, or there hasn't been a lot of people since.
Right.
You realize how special that it was, and how I think Tony Clark gave a speech at a dinner I was at, and he said there's only been 20,000 major league players in the history of the world. That's even for a day, only 20,000. And you just wrap your head around that for a second. And at the time, at that dinner, there was 5 of us that had played in the major leagues. And the 5 of us are all looking at each other like, there's 5 of us in this room. How can it only be 20,000? But you realize how incredibly lucky, how incredibly fortunate I was, because my dream was always to play Major League Baseball, and I was able to accomplish it. And I look at it now, and the kids that I train, I say to them that it's improbable. I can't wrap my head around telling you like you're going to do it. You got every opportunity. You don't have control over it. Like there's
so many other things.
So I always tell them, you work as hard as you can for as long as you can to reach that goal, and make a short-term goal. The long-term goal was always to make it to the major leagues. The short-term goal was to be the best player on my team, whatever that meant. The other thing was to win a championship. Every year, those were kind of my 2 little goals. I wanted to be the best player on the team. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to win a championship, and those went hand in hand to me. And for me, it wasn't that I was the biggest, or I threw the hardest, or I was the best. But if you went to a game and you saw me play, I would be the kid that you were like, man, did you see that kid? He was all over the place. He played short. He played third. He made a diving catch. He hit a double. He stole 2 bases. I was the kid who Pigpen. I had dirt all over my uniform. That's the kind of player I wanted to be. I wanted to be an impact player, and I tell kids all the time, you never know who's watching. You never know who's watching, and all it takes is you to have one off day for an opportunity to go by you where a scout was there to watch somebody else, and meanwhile he saw you dog it, and he's like, NP, no prospect. That NP now goes into a database, and most people look up the database and be like, did any team even look at this kid? Oh, he's an NP. No, we're not even bother looking at him.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it. So I always tell kids, you never know who's out there. You never know who's watching, and to give it your all.
Ain't that the truth? All right. We talked about New York, the New York fans, and Joe wants to know, all right, how crazy really are the Phillies fans?
Is the reputation true?
Is it real?
The city of brotherly love. Yeah, it's that older brother to younger brother love, right? It's the headlock and wedgies kind of love. Listen, I was there in 2001, and in 2001 we were at the Vet, and we went through 9/11 together. So I saw them boo Scott Rowland off the field, which was incredible to me because he was such an iconic player for them. And Larry Bowa was there, and they loved the gritty, gutsy manager Larry Bowa, and Rowland had a falling out with them, whatever it was. Rowland hit a home run during the 9/11 game when we came back, and he was the first guy to hit a home run. He actually had 2 home runs that game. He hit the home run for us to take the lead, and I remember the crowd chanting USA, USA, and it was a sea of people in the Veterans Stadium going nuts, and it was one of those feelings that you never forget, goosebumps all over and like tears in my eyes. It was just iconic feeling for me. So when everybody talks about the Mike Piazza home run, I'm like, yeah, that was cool, but that was also like 11 days later, and the first game back at Shea Stadium. But this was, the first game back we played against the Braves, and we were able to win that game, and Rowland was huge. I saw the fans there, and I saw the fans how they treated the visiting side. They were awful to the visiting side. They were really good to me. Turk Wendell had a falling out with them. They just hated him because if you didn't perform well, they expected good performances, and they booed you. They booed you. They didn't care who you were. Now, fast forward, I get there in 2010. They just won the World Series in 2009. And there's a ring ceremony, the whole 9 yards, and all of a sudden I'm like, wow, this is different. They love a winner, and I never forget, in 2004. Oh, no, that's a lie. I'm thinking, where was I with? I was with Jose Mesa. Yeah, it was 2004. I was with Jose Mesa in 2004. And he's warming up to pitch. And he pitched in Philadelphia and he didn't do well. And they booed the heck out of him while he was warming up. And this guy's dog cussing. I mean, talking about his mother, everything. I get up and I'm like, come on, guy. I mean, he's just warming up. Wait till he's done warming up, and then you can yell anything you want him. Just give him some time. And the guy goes, Figgy, we love you. No problem. And they're just biting their tongues waiting. And as soon as he throws his last pitch, I never forget it. You know, he goes one more, throws his hardest fastball, spins around, and he drinks his water. And as he's drinking his water, the guy goes, Mesa, you flipping stop! And Mesa spits out his water laughing. Like, that guy waited with that in his mouth the whole time, wanting to let him know. And he goes running out, and I look up to the guy, and I thank him, and I gave him a ball. and the guy next to him looks at me, and he goes, what if I say you suck? I go, hey, guys, have a great day. They're like, we love you, Nelson. So I learned to appreciate the Philadelphia fan in a different way. They listen, they're passionate about it. Fans all over with baseball. They love their team, of course, and they put that ahead of anything else. But when you can still interact with them when you played for them previously and you go back and you see that love is still there. And I have learned to appreciate it from all my travels. I played for 6 different teams at the major league level, for 11 or 12 different organizations. And any chance I get to go back and even to talk to some of the rival teams that I played against and to hear their side of, oh, when I played against them or I pitched against them, you know, this and that and the other, it's always a good feeling.
Yeah. So you also played same state when you played with Pittsburgh, right?
Yes.
So they had the 1979 We Are Family World Champs. So that was kind of a very loving time for Philadelphia and for Pittsburgh, and it was a special time for them too.
Right. And then I was with Pittsburgh for the next 10 years of that. They lost with a losing record. We were with a losing record, and I never forget they had a Charlie Brown bobblehead doll. That was the Lovable Losers. So that showed you that they, you know, took it in jest a little bit. They knew they were a premier market team like the Phillies. They were a second market team in the Midwest. You know, I think for me, Pittsburgh was a phenomenal place to play because every sports team was black and yellow. So you never knew who they were rooting for. They were rooting for Pittsburgh. You know, it didn't matter if it was the Steelers, if it was the Penguins, or it was the Pittsburgh Pirates. Black and yellow was the theme of the city. And I thought that was such a tremendous idea because everybody could bond over those colors.
Right.
And so it just made it always seem like there were more fans that were Pittsburgh Pirates fans than there really were. It was a great place to play. The stadium was brand new. I was very fortunate. Like I was always where a team kind of rebuilt and they just got a brand new stadium. At Milwaukee, they just had that dome. I was with Arizona when they had the dome. I go to Philadelphia. I saw the new ballpark. Pittsburgh had the PNC. And so I've always been around the teams where they get that new park with Citi Field going from Shea Stadium. So I got to see the new fields. And I was fortunate because I played in some of the old fields and saw the new fields. And I was in that era of, the transition of baseball where it became, a global superpower when it came to marketability. And to see and when I went to play in Taiwan, to see people wearing New York Yankees stuff because Ching-Ming Wong was pitching for the Yankees and pitching so well at that time, everybody was a Yankees fan over there. And so you saw that how, international the game of baseball could be. And I could always appreciate that. One of my greatest takeaways from my career was I didn't just play in the U.S. I got to play all over the world. I have championships all over the world. I've learned to speak several languages, and I've learned to call myself a champion in several languages. And that's something that I think I still challenge anybody to see if they got a win in 6 different countries.
It's funny that you bring that up because when we've had the professional bowlers on, some of their fondest memories have been in international play, particularly Japan. And they will, when we ask them, what's been your favorite trip? Where is where's been your favorite place to go? Without a doubt, almost every single one of them talk about playing internationally. And Japan in particular.
Yeah, it's different. They do things differently. There's a different fan interaction, and I implore anytime I talk with anybody, a minor league affiliate or people who work in the front office or people who are doing social media content, I'm like, hey, check out this team and how they do things. Check out this team in Taiwan, how they do things. And the interaction of like the fans in Taiwan, they cheer for 3.5 straight hours. They have their thunder sticks. They have the songs for each player. They have their fight songs. They have cheerleading crowd. And it's not like the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders where, these sexy cheerleaders. They have these cheerleaders that are leading in fight songs, men and women. They've got bands. They've got a band that's playing the whole time, drums that are being beat. And you'll be at a ball game where it's only, the stadium can hold 20 some odd thousand. You only have like 4,000 fans on a Monday night or Tuesday night, and yet it feels like they're into the game. It feels like it's a bigger crowd, and the moments that there's action and the moments that there's a score change, it's palpable, and that's something that being a professional athlete, it's something we live for, right? We live for those cheers. We live for the roar of the crowd. That's what it's all about. So I've gotten to see it overseas and see how they enjoy the game in a different way. Yeah. It's more, I think the U.S. crowd, it's more what's in it for me when I go to the ball game, rather than those people. I swear they leave it all out there. Like they're spent after the game more so than the player is. You go see them and they're sweating through their shirts. They're tired. They've had a full workout of being a fan, and I think that's just something that you see over there. And any fan who comes out from the U.S., they sit back and marvel at it. They're like, what is going on right now? There's laser light shows. There's laser lights and flames shooting up. It looks like a Jay-Z concert at times.
That's cool. Hey, before we let you go, we're excited. So players are reporting this week.
Yeah.
July 23rd looks like it's the opening day. There's a question here. We're playing through a pandemic. Does Figgy believe we might actually get through a full season right now? A new season, an entire season.
Listen, I'm watching the other leagues around the world, and so far so good. Everything has gone pretty well. We've been watching Korean baseball at 6 a.m. here on ESPN, watching the Taiwan league, and so far so good. Japan had, 2 guys that tested positive. They quarantined them. Nobody else got sick in that organization, and they were okay. I think the level of precautions that are going to be taken will allow these players and these teams to be able to keep the product on field as much as possible. It's up to the players, honestly. It's up to the players, because I've said this time and time again. You have a young player who gets to the big leagues, and maybe he's on that taxi squad where he's like, well, I'm not going to even really play. But he's going to go out after the game and, go to a bar, go to a restaurant, go wherever, and say he gets sick, and now he maybe gets somebody else sick. I've always been worried about what happens. You're going to play the Chicago Cubs, and 14 of the players need to be quarantined. That would be so detrimental to the sport, and it's not a contact sport, so you can imagine it has a better chance than football does. Yeah. Football. I mean, think about how the rules can change in football. How you can be 6 feet apart on the offensive and defensive lines. I mean, it's not going to be possible. So I'm hoping and I'm praying, and I'm very confident that it can be a successful season, and as long as things stay the way they are, and with the constant knowledge that we're attaining about what seems to be working and what not, like you were saying before with the air conditioning systems, it's respiratory, so just getting all those droplets when you have a large amount of people in a small area, and those droplets now are going up into the air, into the ventilation system, they're being dispersed in other areas. So the workers themselves, that's who were starting to get sick as well, because they were being surrounded by people and tables worth of people. It wasn't necessarily, 2 people coming in for dinner that, they got sick. No, it's the poor waiter who's been, through 3 dozen people during the day and having them breathe all over him. So I think that's one of the things, is that as long as the precautions are taken and they're respected, and these players realize that they got to be more like Jacob DeGrom than Matt Harvey this year, and just focus focus on baseball. If you're paid to play baseball, you're focusing on baseball. I mean, that seems to me like that would be the one thing you would have in your contract, right? If something happens and we can determine that it was because you put yourself in harm's risk, then your contract gets voided. Because I think you have to keep accountability.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be that guy, honestly. I mean, I say that, but look at who was it? Mejia. You don't want to be that guy, but he was the guy 3 times in a row got caught for steroids, right? You don't. So if guys are willing to do that, they're willing to go out and say, "Hey,
right.
I needed to go and grab a bite to eat." No, you don't. You can order in. You can do all the things. Take the precautions. Take it serious, because I think you don't ever want to be considered patient X.
Right.
And let's go Mets.
Yeah.
and at the end of that, so Pete Alonso. I'll let Pete Alonso lead the way with the LFGM.
LFGM, yeah.
Hey, where can everybody find your podcasts?
Yeah, tell us.
Podcast is Amazing But True. It's on anywhere you listen to your podcast. Put in the search Amazing, and it's spelled just like it sounds, AMAZIN, little apostrophe up top. Amazing But True. And it's myself and Jake Brown. He's my co-host, and we have 6 episodes online right now. So I implore you to catch up.
They're really
catch up right now, because they're every one of these episodes, and we've had some phenomenal guests thus far, and we've touched a range of topics early on. We talked with Mike Piazza about what's going on with Italy and quarantining and COVID when we didn't know much, and to see how much more we know now. And our last episode, of course, was with Howie Rose, Doc Gooden, and we did a tribute to Anthony Causey, who had passed away from COVID-19. And it was just a phenomenal show where we had so much packed into it. And it was a shame that it was our last show, because it was, we didn't know what was going to happen with baseball. Now that baseball's back, we'll be back on 2 days a week. We're starting on July 6th. And like you said, I'm excited for baseball to be back.
Awesome. I'm so glad that Naz and I inspired you to host a podcast.
Yeah, no, I figured if you guys can do it, then anybody can.
Yeah, there you go. If a couple of hacks like this do it.
No, it's not. Listen, I know it's not that easy, but I would tell. This is one of the things I tell kids all the time, and as a pitching coach, I tell people. I said, "You're making this out to be a lot harder than it is. We trained monkeys to put us on the moon." I'm just going to put it like that. So, you want to learn how to do something, you research it, you learn about it, and you do podcasts. And I watch when I do podcasts, I learn a little bit more each time, and I try to make my podcast as inclusive of all the knowledge that I've learned, kind of like I did when I pitched.
Yeah. Do you keep yourself to a time limit?
I've been trying not to, and it's funny because every podcast that I've done, I think I talk too much, because we're sitting here at 1:40, and I've done it
a lot.
I do, and there's just so many ways.
I love that about you. I love that.
There's just so many stories that I have. There's so many ways to tell it. There's so many angles that I could tell the same story 5 times on 5 different podcasts, and it sounds different. So for me, I think we adhered to like a 35-minute, because we have commercials, from sponsors and whatnot. But sometimes we have these shows and we record a 30-minute interview with a Doc Gooden, and I'm like, dude, you're gonna cut that up? Are you out of your mind? So
correct.
There are times where I tell him, listen, so for this episode, we'll use the first half of the interview, and then say, hey, next week or in 2 weeks, we'll play the rest of it. So that's another element that we're learning to do. Jake Brown does 5 different podcasts for the New York Post, so he has pretty good knowledge of what needs to be done. But I'm always pushing the envelope of I want to do more fan-friendly stuff. I want fans to be more involved, and I think that's the route that we're going to with it, especially in this pandemic.
Great.
Awesome. And will we be seeing you in the booth on TV as the season starts?
Where are we going to see you?
From your mouth to God's ears. I would love to have an opportunity at the booth. I think that was one of the problems at SNY, is when I was told that I wouldn't have an opportunity in the booth. It was where kind of things went south. I thought that was kind of the natural progression to be the pre and post game guy, and then if somebody went out or somebody left or somebody got sick, and Ronnie happened to get sick, and I was told, no, you're third fiddle right now, and I'm like, okay, if I'm third fiddle, then what am I doing here? I don't understand. Like, I went from the main guy to third fiddle, and then they had a reporter on ahead of me on the pre and post game show, and that's where everything went haywire. So
Right.
I'm looking into, of course, every opportunity. I think I've done a lot of stuff with DAZN, which they have a show called The Change Up, which is like the red zone for baseball.
Right.
So we're constantly watching games. We're talking baseball. We're talking shop. We start talking about some of my experiences, my career. Oh, hold on. It's the Red Sox versus the Yankees. Bases loaded, 1 out. You know, we watch what happens. Their broadcasters talk about it. And then when we come back into the studio, I can help explain what happened, why it happened, and, you know, what could have happened. So I think I provide a nice I provide a different element than most, because I've had a lot of failure in my career, and I can speak to failure. I can speak to failures more so than all-star games and World Series championships. But that most teams and most players do as well, right? Only one team that wins it every year. So, all right.
So, you know, listen. Honestly, I believe the Mets probably have the best, and maybe maybe impartial, but the Mets have a great booth and a great.
Oh no, the best one. Best one.
I think that you would be, in whatever form, a wonderful addition, or to have come in when somebody goes out.
Yeah, I mean, radio is a possible. With this face, I might be doing radio, so I think that's
yeah.
as well. So I actually had some talks with WFAN, and if the season was taking place, I was going to try and do some games and even fill in or be the third mic on a few games to get to learn over the course of the season. And that's another element that I think would be awesome as well, because I remember as a kid, traveling in the car and listening to it on the radio and listening to Howie Rose's voice over the year, getting to know him. I think I would be able to add another another perspective in a way that would help enhance.
Absolutely.
Hey, you're awesome. Thanks again for dropping by.
My pleasure, guys.
We love it.
And before you know it, we'll be back. And you're going to be here bowling with us, and we'll figure that out and announce
it's already in the plans.
You got it. All right. Great talking with you.
Let's go, man. Looking forward to a season. Nelson, we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Nelson.
Bye.
Bye.
And I asked if he could keep to a time frame, because I don't think he can. Love him to death.
Like I said, he had so much to share, and listen, I could have asked him 100 questions because I had them all in my head.
Yeah, you were getting ready for a love fest. I think you just wanted to jump in the screen here and hug him. Hey, thanks for watching us today, live from Rabs with the one and only Nelson Figueroa.
Yeah.
Episode 94.
Great insight.
Now
Great
probably
insight.
I'm going to go back to episode 50 and see if that was the longest. We might be the longest show yet here. And I'm glad you stuck, for those that were here, stuck around. He's great. And if you're just tuning in, go back and watch the rest. Some great insight, and of course, in Figgy's opinion of what the season will look like. And, I'm excited. I just said it. I'm excited. Going to report by the end of the month. We should be able to actually watch see
some baseball
on TV. But hey, join us tomorrow. Tomorrow we're on the road. Fresco style. Hopefully it's not pouring like it was today.
No, look in the sun. It looks like the sun came out.
We're going to talk food with our friend Pam Silvestri from
Nelson talked so long the sun came out.
The sun. We talk with Pam and our friend Diane Arnett from Community Health Action. We're going to be live from Besso. And so come enjoy some tapas with us. We'll make you hungry. We'll talk about some food. That's tomorrow. I'm here live from Rabs, 2 p.m.
We're back to our regularly
scheduled time. We noticed a couple of you maybe popped in a little bit later, thinking we or didn't catch yesterday's and didn't realize that we were on a little late. We were on early today. Anyway, hey, thanks for watching.
Yep, that was awesome.
Smash the like button. Share with your friends and family.
Share. Tell your friends.
We kept it real for you today. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.